There is a thread that runs through every wisdom tradition on earth. A golden thread, fine as silk, strong as iron, connecting the Vedic seers to the Zen masters, the Sufi poets to the desert mystics, the Taoist sages to the alchemists of medieval Europe. It whispers the same truth in 1,000 languages, and most people never hear it. Not because it's hidden, because they stop looking after they find one room in the house. If you're here, you didn't stop. You kept walking through doors, and somewhere along the way, someone told you that was a problem. Pick one path, go deep, not wide, commit. And you tried, you really tried, but something in you kept pulling. A verse from the Upanishads would crack you open, and then a line from Rumi would finish the thought. You'd sit in meditation using a Buddhist technique and suddenly understand something about the chakras that no yoga teacher ever explained. A passage from the Tao Te Ching would land in your body like it was written for you personally, and then you'd read the same idea in the Bhagavad Gita, said in completely different words. And you started to wonder, what if they're all saying the same thing? They are. Not metaphorically, not in a vague, all religions teach love kind of way. Specifically, precisely, with a consistency that becomes almost eerie once you see it. The Vedic tradition calls it Rita, the cosmic order, the truth that holds everything in place. In Taoism, it's the Tao, the way that cannot be named but moves through all things. The Sufis call it al-Haq, the real. In Buddhism, it's Dharma, not the rules, but the nature of reality itself. Different words, different centuries, different continents. The same recognition that there is something underneath the surface of things, something that doesn't change when cultures change, when languages die, when empires rise and fall. Something that was true before anyone wrote it down, and will be true after every book has turned to dust. And you can feel it. You've always been able to feel it. That's why you can't stay in one room. They didn't start separate. The oldest wisdom, the really old wisdom, before it was organized into schools and lineages and religions, wasn't Vedic or Buddhist or Taoist. It was just observation. Human beings sitting with reality and reporting what they found. The rishis in the forests of ancient India, the monks in the mountains of China, the mystics in the deserts of Persia. They weren't building competing systems. They were describing the same landscape from different elevations. The separation came later, when the observations became institutions, when the living truth became doctrine, when someone decided that this door was the right door and all the other doors were wrong. But the thread didn't break. It just went underground, and it surfaces in the strangest places, in the overlap between Ayurvedic doshas and the 5 elements of Chinese medicine, in the mirror between the Kabbalistic tree of life and the chakra system, in the way a Zen koan and a Sufi parable can crack open the same knot in your mind. These aren't coincidences, they're the thread. It isn't a belief, it isn't a philosophy, it's a pattern of recognition that appears when a human being gets quiet enough to listen. Every tradition that has gone deep enough arrives at certain truths, not because they copied each other. Some of these traditions had no contact whatsoever, but because the truths are structural. They're woven into the fabric of consciousness itself. That awareness is more fundamental than thought. That suffering comes from mistaking the temporary for the permanent. That the body is not separate from the mind, and the mind is not separate from the world. That there is a quality of presence, call it samadhi, call it satori, call it fana, call it grace, where the boundary between self and everything else becomes transparent. Every tradition has a map to that place. The maps look different, the place is the same. And you, the one who keeps pulling books from different shelves, who meditates in the morning and reads Rumi at night, who felt something true in the I Ching and something equally true in the Yoga Sutras. You are not confused. You are following the thread. There have always been people like you. In every generation, in every culture, there are the ones who see through the walls between traditions to the architecture underneath. The Mughal Emperor Akbar, who gathered scholars from every religion to find the common ground. Rumi, whose poetry draws from Islam, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and Hinduism without ever breaking stride. Ramakrishna, who practiced Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism to their deepest levels and reported the same ocean at the bottom of each. These weren't confused seekers, they were cartographers of the thread. They mapped the connections that others couldn't see or wouldn't look for, and they were often misunderstood, called dilettantes by the specialists, called heretics by the orthodox, called confused by people who had committed to one room and couldn't imagine why anyone would keep opening doors. If you've been called any of those things, you're in good company. You don't have to choose one tradition. That's not disloyalty, it's range. But you do have to go deep. The thread doesn't reveal itself to tourists. You can't skim the surface of 12 traditions and find what the mystics found. You have to enter the water. Pick up the Gita and don't just read it. Sit with it until a verse rewires something in your chest. Learn what your dosha actually means, not from a quiz, but from watching your own body across seasons. Study the nakshatras not as personality types, but as 27 flavors of consciousness that move through you every month. And then, when a Taoist text says the same thing in different words, you'll feel the thread pull taut between them, not as an idea, as a recognition. Oh, this is the same truth, wearing different clothes. This is what we explore here, not one tradition in isolation, but the living connections between them, the places where Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine describe the same body, where Vedic astrology and the tarot map the same psyche, where Buddhist mindfulness and yogic dharana arrive at the same silence. Not to flatten the differences matter. They're how each tradition illuminates angles the others miss. But to follow the thread, to see the whole tapestry instead of one corner of it. Because the truth was never locked inside one tradition. It was threaded through all of them, waiting for someone patient enough, curious enough, honest enough to trace it. If you've been following that thread through books and practices and late nights and traditions that don't seem to go together until suddenly they do, you were always meant to find this. Welcome to Satyora.